F1 teams may come and go, but there are a few that have withstood the test of time and come out on top. Here are the most successful F1 teams of all time, based on Constructors Championships. Keep in mind that there are plenty of incredible teams outside of this list, but these guys really seem to know how to build a winning car. Are you curious as to which team made the list? Stick around and let's dive into the details.
Max Verstappen into Abbey, takes the lead, and Carlos Sainz, and at the back.
To begin with, let's talk about Ferrari. Ferrari is known by racers as by far the most successful F1 team in history. They have been dominating the racetrack since the early days of F1 and have won more races than any other team to date. They became the first to celebrate their 1,000th race at the Tuscan Grand Prix in 2020. The team has taken home a hefty number of Constructors Championships throughout its history. Their first came in 1961 with Bill Hill, Richie Ginther, and Wolfgang von Trips leading the charge. Unfortunately, the German driver was killed at the penultimate race of the season. The race was not stopped after the accident, allowing Hill to take the checkered flag and the title by a single point. Ferrari won the Constructors' Championship again in 1964, fending off BRM as John Surtees secured his sole driver's title. The team went on to win 4 more championships in the 1970s, most notably with Niki Lauda leading the charge alongside Clay Regazzoni and later Carlos Reutemann. Ultimately, F1 fans will always remember Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve taking Ferrari to the title in 1979. The pair finished first and second in the driver's standings that year, solidifying their legacy as 2 of the most successful drivers in Ferrari history. And without question, Ferrari is a top team, with 16 constructors titles and 15 driver titles. No other team has come close to touching their level of success. Still, Ferrari has suffered in recent years compared to some other teams, such as Red Bull, which was predominant in the early 2010s. Next up, let's explore Williams. With 9 constructors titles and a whopping 7 driver titles, Williams is one of the most decorated teams in F1 history. Their first constructors championship came in 1980 with Alan Jones leading the charge. The team took home 2 more constructors titles in the early 1990s with Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost behind the wheel. This was what undoubtedly solidified the team as the powerhouse they became throughout the years. Williams was first known for their incredible engineering, which often led to them being at the forefront of new technology in F1. In fact, they were the first team to use a turbocharged engine in F1 competition back in 1977. Still, combined with a plethora of rule changes, Williams fell behind a bit at the turn of the century. They had some success with BMW engines in the early 2000s, but it was short-lived. Its most recent run has seen the team slip to the back of the grid. Will Williams ever make a comeback? It's unclear. One thing is for sure, this team had an impact on F1 history. Next on the list is McLaren with 8 constructors titles and 12 driver titles. McLaren is a British team that was founded in 1963 by New Zealander Bruce McLaren. The team raced their first F1 Grand Prix in 1966 and won their first Constructors' Championship in 1974. The team has always been at the forefront of F1 technology, and they are known for their incredible engineering. The team's founding driver secured its first championship victory at the Belgian Grand Prix 2 years later. The team won their first Constructors' title in 1974 with Emerson Fittipaldi behind the wheel. The team has always been a force to be reckoned with, and they have many notable drivers in their history. Still, McLaren's time at the top had to come to an end. In over 30 years, McLaren has only won 1 Constructors' Championship and 3 Drivers' Championships. As for the drivers' titles, these went to Mika Hakkinen in 1997 and 1998, and Lewis Hamilton in 2008. Despite their recent struggles, McLaren has always been a top team, as it should show when you consider that Hamilton was one of their drivers, and Hamilton is now the most successful F1 driver of all time. Mercedes comes in next, a famous and important F1 team. With 8 constructors titles and 9 driver titles, Mercedes is one of the most successful teams in F1 history, especially in recent years. In fact, it goes without saying that in recent years, Mercedes is almost one of the only dominant forces in F1. Still, Mercedes is fairly new to the sport, having only entered cars in 1954 and 1955 before the return in the 2010s. Juan Manuel Fangio won the driver's title in both those years, although he competed for Maserati for 2 races prior to his Mercedes switch midway through the 1954 season. But with no constructors' crowns awarded in that period, Mercedes would wait 60 years to notch up its first constructors' title. Mercedes returned to Grand Prix racing in 2010, having agreed to buy the Brawn outfit that sensationally won both F1 world titles in the previous season. And here's where Mercedes struck gold, continuing to dominate the world of F1. Note that Mercedes has now won 7 constructors' championships in a row from 2014 to 2020, a period of utter domination. And in those 7 years, Mercedes has also won the drivers' championship 6 times, with Nico Rosberg winning in 2016 and Lewis Hamilton winning from 2017 to 2020. And with Hamilton potentially set to win again, Mercedes could potentially set the record for most consecutive Constructors' Championships. These guys are legit, that's for sure. Finally, let's talk about Red Bull. Red Bull only entered the league in 2005, so when you realize that they have 5 Constructors titles and 6 driver titles, it's pretty remarkable. It was a long time coming for Red Bull, but when they did secure their first title in 2010, it was a big deal. They went on to win the next 4 Constructors' Championships from 2010 to 2013. In terms of driver titles, Sebastian Vettel took home 4 in a row from 2010 to 2013, and to this day, Vettel is the driver with the most F1 championship wins for Red Bull. The team also had success with Daniel Ricciardo winning the driver's title in 2014. Red Bull has always been a top team, but they have struggled in recent years, especially when you compare them to Mercedes. But how did they win all those championships? It's no doubt that they have always had some of the best drivers, but their cars were also pretty incredible. Red Bull has always been at the forefront of F1 technology, at least in recent years. With Red Bull constantly investing in their team and drivers, we wouldn't be surprised to see them back on top in the coming years. Before we go, Lotus gets an honorable mention. Lotus may not be the most well-known F1 team, but with 7 Constructors titles and 6 driver titles, they definitely deserve some recognition. Lotus is a British team that was founded in 1952 by Colin Chapman. The team has always been at the forefront of F1 technology, and they are known for their incredible engineering. Lotus is best known for its success in the 1960s and 1970s with drivers such as Jim Clark, Graham Hill, and Mario Andretti behind the wheel. The team has always been a force to be reckoned with, and they have many notable drivers in their history. With all that being said, this team just hasn't been as prominent as of late. In fact, they haven't won a Constructors' Championship since 1978 or a Drivers' Championship since 1987. As for their most recent success, that came in 2012 when they managed to take 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. Despite their recent struggles, Lotus is still an important team in F1 history. So, which team is the most successful in F1? All things considered, it's hard to argue against Ferrari. As mentioned before, this team has won more races than any other team to date, and they have also taken home the most Constructors' Championships. Still, there are plenty of incredible teams outside of this list, but these guys seem to really know how to build a winning car. With that being said, Mercedes has been dominating the charts as of late, and they could potentially pass Ferrari in terms of championships won. Okay, let's sum it up. So there you have it. When it comes to the most successful F1 teams, Ferrari really takes the cake. With 16 Constructors titles and 15 driver titles, they are in a class of their own. However, Mercedes has been closing the gap in recent years and could potentially overtake them. Beyond this, teams like Williams shouldn't be forgotten with 9 Constructors titles and McLaren with 8. And as for Red Bull, they may not have been around for as long as some of the other teams, but they have made quite the impact with 5 Constructors titles and 6 driver titles. So what do you think? Which team is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next video.